How to change the oil filter, the air filter in an Audi A3 1.6 TDI 2010. First thing you want to do is find level firm ground, go into the car and put the handbrake on, chock the rear wheels, then go into the boot and get the jack out, if you've got one that is, because not all came with the optional spare wheel and jack, so you'll have to find a suitable jack for the weight of the car. Locate the jacking point on the front of the sill, which is a small indented arrow just here, and you put your jack on the actual seam, which is just underneath behind this. Jack up the car. Oh, and turn off the security warning buzzer by unlocking the car again. Don't forget your axle stand, placed on a suitable solid part, such as the engine subframe. Turn on the engine to let it run a little bit to warm the oil, so it can easily flow out. But be careful not to overheat the oil, because hot oil burns, so you just want to warm the oil. Find something suitable to lay on. I've got my Auntie Gertie's old rug. You'll need some suitably thick gloves to protect your hands and some eyewear, which is particularly important as you're crawling underneath the car. Now go underneath the car and locate the 8 T25 screw bolts. There are 4 on each side, 4 here and 4 on the other side, as well as 3 larger T30 bolts on the rear, which you want to be taking off last, with the very centre one being the last bolt. And of course it's probably worth putting some penetrating fluid on, especially if they haven't been off before. Take all those out. Remove the last bolt with your fingers and it'll drop down. And unhook the front clip. Just here, you just need to push up. And then draw the tray from underneath the car. Open up the bonnet. And take the top cover off. There are 4 spigot ball and socket connections holding it on. And you just need to pull up at each corner to release it, and then it'll come off. If we take a look underneath the cover, you can just see how it fits on, with the socket part being on the cover and the ball spigot being on the engine. One here and one here. One here. And one here. Take the oil filler cap off and rest it on its side to vent the engine to allow the oil to flow out easier. Locate the sump plug, which is on the rear of the sump, just here. I used a 19mm 1/2" socket and wrench to break loose the bolt and turn it anti-clockwise to undo it. And remember that you're a bit disorientated underneath the car, being on your back, so it's best to double check these before you unloosen them. Loosen the bolt until it's finger tight, usually a couple of threads. Then go and find a suitable bowl to put the oil in. And I find an old washing up bowl is ideal, which has enough redundancy to make pulling out the oil from underneath the car quite safe. You can pull the oil out with the mat that you place underneath it. Position the bowl on the mat underneath the sump plug, allowing for the stream of oil which projects about 6 inches towards the rear of the car. When you're happy with the position, slowly undo the sump plug, keeping pressure on it until you reach the final threads, and then you'll hear a little click. Pull the sump plug sharply away into free air and let the oil flow out. And I lowered the card down on the jack to make sure I got all the oil out of the engine. I usually leave it to drain for about half an hour, so it's a good time to have a break for a cup of tea. To gain access to the filter housing, you have to take this bracket and associated gubbins off, which is a T30, and you want to be careful not to drop this screw down into the engine bay. Lift these to one side. There's a little plastic clip that just lifts out. Here's the filter housing cap, which is a 32mm, and I use a 1/2 inch wrench with a long extension on it. But first you want to put some paper towels around this filter housing to stop any spillages, and a rag to put the filter on. Unscrew the cap. And carefully lift it out, and you'll have to bend the pipe a little bit, jiggle it free, and the filter is attached within the cap. Clean out any gunk in the filter housing with a lint-free cloth. The filter just detaches from the cap by just pulling it sharply away from it. It clips into place in the actual cap. I'd only recommend good quality filters for this engine. They usually fit a little bit better and come with new O-rings, which you must replace. To remove the O-rings, you just need to put a little flat-bladed screwdriver or a hook or something. Once you've got one end out, it just usually rolls out with your finger. Put a new O-ring in place, just oil it a bit first and then put it on and then roll round with your fingers and it'll stretch into place. With the little ones, just be careful not to let them spring out of your hands and you lose them somewhere, which is quite easily done. And the same applies, just put one end in and then roll it round with your fingers. Put the new filter on by pressing it home into the cap. It will click into place. And then refit it into the car. Make sure the lip on the filter cap meets the filter housing shoulder, and then tighten down to the correct torque. Refit the bracket, keeping a tight hold of the screw, and put any clips back in place. This particular engine is designed to run on SAE 5W30 Volkswagen 507.00 for for vehicles fitted with a particulate filter on variable service intervals, but is also quoted for fixed service intervals, which in my opinion is the way to go, as I change my oil out every 7,500 miles or 12,000 kilometres, which I believe best safeguards your engine and is most cost effective if you purchase and change out the oil yourself in the long term. It's also worth noting that this is dependent on driving conditions that put the engine under greater or lesser loading stress, such as racing or cruising. So you might want to alter your particular oil changes, allowing for these factors. Fit a new sump plug and washer, as these are fitted with limited use washers, as these are designed to seal well at the specified torque, which for a new one is 30 Newton meters. Whilst underneath the car, I usually like to replace the under tray, because I'm 100% certain that I've replaced the sump plug correctly, and I've never ever had any issues with leaky sump plugs. But I should really say you should put this on after you've filled it up with oil, so you can check for leaks before you put the under tray back on. So I'll leave that one with you guys. It's just something that I do so I'm more relaxed filling up with oil and without the knowledge of having to crawl back underneath the car again. And by the same token, I like to pour my old engine oil out now into an old plastic can, preferably one with a scale at the side, so I can tell roughly how much has come out of the engine. It just gives you a ballpark idea of what you've taken out, so you can compare it with how much you're going to put in. And in this case, on this vehicle, it's 4.6 litres, which is the majority of a 5 litre can. Steadily pour the oil into the engine with a suitable funnel, which you want to make sure it's secure before you start doing it. And if you haven't done this before, it might be a good idea to put some rags all the way around this area. Take out the dipstick and clean it and put it back, and keep checking it at regular intervals until you see it appear at the bottom of your stick, and that's when you have to slow right down and then gently pour a bit at a time in until it comes up to in the middle of the operating zone. Then stop and put the cap back on the engine, go inside the car and start the engine and run that for a while, which fills up oil in all the oil galleries and the filter housing. Turn the engine off and let it stand for about 2 minutes and check the oil level again. Keep filling and checking until you get to the desired level. Which the manufacturer recommends maintaining in the range A above the hashed area, measured at normal operating temperature, but this gives little room for the error of overfilling and its detrimental effects on engine efficiency and premature wear. But then again, having a low level of engine oil runs a greater risk of catastrophic engine failure. So in my opinion, the best level for ordinary users to maintain would be in the hashed area range B, with a good compromise being at the top of this area to allow for some error and an amount of normal engine oil burning. But importantly, it doesn't negate the fact of regular oil level checks, and a good time to do this is when each time you fill up the tank. And don't forget to refit the filler cap. Taking a look at the air filter, which is housed in the air filter box at the front left hand side of the engine. There are 8 Phillips screws to undo. These don't come undone completely and stay attached to the filter housing lid, so you don't have to worry about losing them in the engine bay. Loosen all those off. You just have to unclip this little breather pipe just here to get access to this one. And lift up the top half of the housing. If you pinch the edge of the foam seal, you can nip it and lift it up and out of the housing box. Inside the box there's a little grill that you can take out. And then clean out any leaves that may be in there. and probably worth vacuuming it out. Putting a new filter in, it doesn't matter which way around it is, just drop it in, make sure the foam seal is seated and refit the lid. And it's a good idea to jiggle the lid about a little bit to seat it properly before tightening up all the screws, which you want to do evenly with the same amount of torque on each screw, and I try to do this from centre outwards. And always go over the screws a second time, and the job's done. Oh, and I think I'll just top it up with screen wash, which is always a good idea at this time. Open up the blue cap on the right hand side of the engine, and it might be a good idea to put some rags around to stop any spillages. Use fresh clean water and add the desired screen wash to the manufacturer's instructions on the side of the can, and pour in the old aquavita, like a good old Spanish Rioja for your engine. Just align and push on the engine cover and it's another job well done. And as always, thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video.